To understand what's happening in India today, one must study the history of India from ancient times, like going back to maybe at least 1,000 years back, to start studying what was happening in India then, right? And why did the Muslims feel this sense of fear from the extreme element within the Hindu community in India? Because Muslims had existed or coexisted in India with Hindus for over 1,000 years, right? So they had good reasons, solid reasons to fear living under a Hindu rule in India, especially when it would be a democracy when the British left, because Hindus were the majority. And this argument that Muslims from Bengal and Western India and Central India collectively would have outnumbered the current Hindu majority of India is absurd. Anyone who knows the demographics of India wouldn't argue in that way. Why? Because what has changed today? There are more Muslims in India than there are in Pakistan, and they are demographically divided in ways that they cannot have a real impact politically on the politics of the country. So if you look at the Muslim population in India, it is in pockets. There is a pocket in Hyderabad, there's a pocket in northern India, there are a few pockets possibly in West India, okay? And because they are divided demographically, they cannot have a real impact politically. How many MPs do Muslims have in the parliament in India today? How many? How many real leaders who can actually stand and talk for Muslims? There are one or two people, of course. This is why the founding fathers of Pakistan demanded a separate homeland in order to protect the unique identity Muslims professed. Hinduism is a new idea. Yeah. Hindus are not homogeneous, they're not monolithic. They don't exist as a pocket, as one united entity. That was never the case. If you pick up histories from the Mughal period and even before that, they are written in Persian, even written by Hindus.
Who created Hinduism?
Hinduism was created by the British, okay, to divide the Muslims and Hindus along religious lines so that they are easily governed. And the British establishment, colonial establishment, favored Hindus over Muslims because they feared that Muslims who have lost power in India will try to come back or they will try to claim back that glory they once had in India. So that was the reason why the British political establishment favored Hindus, and Hindus were appointed in important positions even in the 19th century. So the War of Independence, or the Indian Mutiny of 1857, caused the Muslims to be marginalized. They were completely sidelined because the British blamed the Muslims entirely for that mutiny, even though it was sparked or initiated by Hindus. The Hindu garrison at Meerut in India in 1857, it was actually started by a Hindu soldier within the British East India Company army. His name was Mangal Pandey, and he initiated the rebellion. And then it grew to other regions of northern India. And then the Mughal emperor, who was a puppet already anyway, was forced into it on gunpoint. Some of these mutineers, they came and they occupied Delhi, and they forced the emperor to take leadership because they didn't have a leader. So they wanted some kind of central leadership. So the blame was put on Muslims, to cut the long story short, and Muslims were thenceforth completely marginalized from important positions. They were given to Hindus. Muslims lacked education. For that reason, people like Sir Syed Ahmad Khan, who had some erroneous ideas on Islam, unfortunately, he kind of sparked many controversies when it comes to his theological views. But when it comes to his leadership for the Muslim community in India, he was very sincere. He wanted good for the Muslims. So for that purpose, to that end, he established this college called Anglo-Muslim College in a place called Aligarh, which later on came to be known as the Aligarh University, the Oxford of Muslims in India, basically, right? And the Aligarh University produced many intellectuals because he could see, Sir Syed, his name was Syed Ahmad Khan. Sir was the title given by the British establishment to him for his achievements, right? So he could see that Muslims, if something is not done very fast, will suffer financially, economically, politically, and that will impact Muslim well-being in India. So that's why he established this educational institution to have an elite for the Muslim community, so that Muslims can have effective leaders, intelligent leaders, educated leaders who can lead the Muslims of the subcontinent. And that is what produced, directly or indirectly, that particular group of people which rose to lead the Muslims during the independence movement later on in the
so then how does
20th century. Kashmir issue is basically another very unfortunate episode in the history of colonial India. Kashmir is predominantly Muslim, right? Kashmir was governed by Muslims for over 1,000 years. Again, Muslim sultans had direct rule over Kashmir. Okay, in fact, we can find coins to this day from the Mughal period minted in Kashmir. In Srinagar, you have the Mughal Emperor Jalaluddin Muhammad Akbar. His coins were minted in Srinagar. I have these coins in my personal collection.
Wow.
So Kashmir has been there as Muslim territory for a very long time. Mughal emperors would go there for recreational purposes. They would go and spend their time there. If an emperor felt sick or ill, they would make their way to Kashmir. I mean, there are so many examples. Then after the Mughals declined, other dynasties came in. For example, the Duranis, the Afghans, right? Ahmad Shah Abdali, or also known as Ahmad Shah Durrani, he governed Kashmir directly. There are coins.
Was that after the Mughals?
After the Mughals. So how was Kashmir lost from? I mean, how did Muslims lose control of Kashmir, which is predominantly Muslim? Demographically, Kashmir is a Muslim territory. Okay, I would say over 80% of the population is Muslim, right? So when India was divided by the British colonial establishment, Kashmir would naturally come to Pakistan, right? But Kashmir was a semi-independent territory ruled by a Hindu family called the Dogras. Okay, this Hindu family got the control of Kashmiri territory in the mid-19th century from the Sikhs, because Maharaja Ranjit Singh, again, is going to be a very long history lesson, and I'm going to shorten it so that people understand where we're coming from. Sikhs governed parts of India, particularly Punjab, the Punjab region, for nearly 50 years. Okay, Maharaja Ranjit Singh, who was born in current-day Pakistan, Gujranwala. Okay, he rose to unite, or he took leadership as a young man of the Sikh divided military orders. He united them. There were 12 different orders in different parts of Punjab, okay, of the Sikhs, and they called them mithals. Mithal actually means a group of people who are, it's like a military group. So they would go into different territories, rob, plunder, and this is how they lived, right? So Ranjit Singh united all these 12 groups and became the leader, and he took Lahore from the Duranis, okay? So after he occupied Lahore in 1799, thenceforth he governed with an iron fist parts of Punjab, and at one point he was governing territory from Peshawar to Multan.
Wow.
Okay, yes, and he governed for 40 years. He died in 1839, cut the long story short. Within 10 years, his empire was dismantled, and there were two Anglo-Sikh Wars. The British had their eyes on the Punjab, which is a very fertile region,
very fertile,
and it was producing
rice, sugar,
a lot of things. So the British had their eyes on the Punjab. So they defeated the Sikhs in two Anglo-Sikh wars, and the Sikhs lost their influence in Punjab, and the British imposed their direct rule. Now, at that time, Kashmir was governed by the Sikhs, right? Kashmir was occupied by Maharaja Ranjit Singh, and there are coins minted in Kashmir in the name of Maharaja Ranjit Singh and his sons, Sher Singh, and others who came. I mean, there were not many. Unfortunately, they all kind of died within a very short span of time after their father was gone. So Kashmir became a territory ruled by the Sikhs. But then the governor of Kashmir was Hindu. His name was Gulab Singh. Okay, Gulab Singh was directly attached to the court of Maharaja Ranjit Singh in Lahore. So when things went wrong upside down in the center, Gulab Singh announced his independence, and they came to be known as the Dogras. Okay, this was the Dogra family. So there was now direct rule of the Dogras over the valley of Jammu and Kashmir,
which is predominantly Muslim population.
Population is still Muslim, predominantly over 90% is still Muslim. Okay, so from then to 1940s, when India was basically split into two halves mainly, the family still continued to govern, even as a tributary power. I mean, they were like under the protection, or how can I put it? It was like a vassal state, right? So the overruling power was the British colonial establishment. So Maharaja, or the Raja of Kashmir at the time of the partition, was Hari Singh, one of the descendants of Gulab Singh. Jinnah approached him for the reason that
Muhammad Ali
Jinnah approached him in 1947 or before that Kashmir is a Muslim territory. The population is all Muslim. So it would be only fair for you to join Pakistan, right? And then Nehru, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, who was the leader on the other side, who was representing Congress party in India, who was one of the founding fathers of current day India, he approached Maharaja Hari Singh that you should become a part of India. So with some reservations, because he was Hindu himself, Hari Singh, he didn't care about the population. And in fact, there were some massacres carried out against the population when they wanted to be with the Muslims. He joined hands with India. So India imposed an indirect rule on the valley of Jammu and Kashmir, which continued to this day on paper. Of course, Kashmir has been the most heavily militarized region in the world. There are close to 1 million soldiers in Kashmir as we speak right now, to subdue the valley, to have control over it. And Pakistan wants it as part of Pakistan because it was claimed by Pakistan as well, right? So Nehru promised, when he took Kashmir as his own, as if it was his own, to claim, he promised that we will do a referendum for the population. If the population wants to go independent from India and Pakistan, it would be their choice. Or if they want to join hands with Pakistan, then that referendum never happened, unfortunately, right? So Kashmir was given a special status, and the article that guaranteed that was the Article 370 in the Indian Constitution and 35A, right? According to these two articles,
discussed at the moment, right?
Yes, which is exactly what was repealed on Monday. These two articles were repealed by the current extremist right-wing BJP Indian government. And they obviously didn't care about agreements made by previous governments and leaders. So these two articles guaranteed the semi-autonomous status of the states of Jammu and Kashmir. So according to these articles, Indian civilians from mainland India couldn't buy land in Kashmir. The jurisdiction of the Supreme Court of India didn't apply in Jammu and Kashmir. The people of Jammu and Kashmir could have their own flags. They would have to consult the main the Indian government on issues regarding foreign policy, defense, and things like that, security issues. Other than that, Kashmir was constitutionally a semi-autonomous region without any serious consultation, even with their own politicians, to impose a direct occupational rule over the valley of Jammu and Kashmir. These two articles were completely repealed by the current Indian government, which is well known for
the Indian
hatred against Muslims, for pumping Islamophobia. All the lynchings in India that have been taking place for the last 5 years.
I was just actually watching videos today of how bad it is.
Muslims are being killed, like insects, basically. If Hindu mobs get together and they decide to kill a Muslim or a Muslim family, it's all good. Police would be, reluctant to take action, because a lot of the times police themselves, they sympathize with such mobs, and they are part of the problem. So Muslims are facing a very difficult period, generally speaking, in India. Very, very difficult period. I mean, recently all these issues have been raised about the triple talaq, as if Modi or the BJP really cares about the Indian women. And some of the Muslim leaders have been raising this point that if you really care about the rights of women, which is the pretext they are using to attack the Muslim community by using one of the clauses of the Hanafi fiqh, right? And this is what the Muslim leaders have been speaking about in India, that don't think this is only a problem of the Hanafis. It is a problem for the Muslims, because today they are attacking the Hanafi fiqh, tomorrow they will attack all fiqh. They will attack Islam, and this is the aim. Slowly I'm talking about specifically this particular government.
It's hard not to question their sincerity about protecting women where they're being raped in mobs.
Exactly. And on top of that, hold on, if you think about women's rights in India, the highest rate of rapes in the world, is in India, unfortunately. India is the rape capital of the world. Number one. Number two, the highest rate of female infanticide is in India. The highest number of aborted female fetuses is in India. The highest number of child prostitution is in India. There are slums in India, Bombay, Bengal, I don't know where. I mean, you go and watch documentaries on YouTube and you will see what's happening to women in India. So it is ironic for the government to suddenly, the BJP government in particular, to suddenly wake up and start defending women's rights when it comes to Muslim women, right? And Modi tweeted about that today, there is something, freedom for women or something like that. So this is like Sarkozy, right? In I think not very long ago when he was the president in France, he said they are imposing this niqab ban to protect women against oppression. But hold on a second, France has a huge population of trafficked women who are being sold in markets. France has a huge problem with women.
It seems like the normal kind of playbook to call to a crowd baying for kind of the blood of a scapegoat, get angry at this kind of demonized population.
Absolutely.
Whilst you continue to kind of increase your own powers as a government.
Yes.
And distract people.
And distracting people from real problems. So all these...
Coming back to Kashmir.
Yeah. Coming back to Kashmir, I mean, currently now, unfortunately, the situation is that India has imposed a direct rule over Kashmir. It's occupation now, basically. It's completely ignoring all the previous treaties and agreements and going against all the United Nations resolutions and all the advice of international leaders and requests from Pakistan and Kashmiri leaders and even Indian politicians within India. Rahul Gandhi, the leader of Congress party, which is one of the biggest parties in India, has severely criticized this move, and he has warned that this move will potentially divide India and big things may happen. Like for the people of Kashmir, I don't know what this means. We have no idea what's going to happen to them, and Indian Army is unfortunately known for committing atrocities in Kashmir. It is well documented. I'm not even making this up. This is not because I'm speaking as a Muslim, my bias is speaking. There is documentary evidence of Indian Army committing atrocities against Kashmiri civilians. Thousands of people have disappeared, thousands of rapes, and other things. We as Muslim community around the world, we want the best for the people of Kashmir, we want the best for the people of India. But it seems that the government on the other side doesn't want peace, and they're doing things like this, and now there is direct occupation. I really hope and pray that Kashmir doesn't become another Palestine. It is clear that the Indian government, the current government, why I keep saying the current government, it is ruled by a specific group of people, and they are known for their bigotry, they are known for their hatred towards Muslims, they are known for their hatred towards Sikhs and Dalits, and it is an elite which doesn't seem to be caring about the people of India because of the kind of things they're doing. And if India had problems previously, what this government might end up doing is completely escalating those problems out of control, right? And it is very possible that our fears about the region may come true. But we really hope for peace and justice for all people in the world, whether it's Kashmiris or Indians. And before we end, a very quick note that we as Muslims, we represent a civilization. right? We don't represent a particular ethnicity or a particular language or a particular piece of land. We represent a civilization. It is a living civilization. It started with the advent of the Prophet of Islam sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It has a unique feature. It has a unique character. We represent that civilization. We represent our poets, our authors, our libraries, our hospitals, our street lights in Cordoba. We represent our philosophers in Baghdad. We represent our theologians in Damascus. We represent our artists, for example, calligraphers in India. We represent all of that. Islamic civilization is absolutely beautiful, and this is what we need to highlight. We need to show the world that you can't just jump from a bunch of extremists straight to the Prophet and link them to the Prophet. No. If you want to talk about the Prophet, then you start talking about what took place between the 21st century and exactly the rich history of the Muslim civilization or the Islamic civilization, if you want to call that.